My beloved child, stop for a moment and listen carefully, because there is something about your soulmate that you may have sensed without ever being able to explain. Lately, their energy has felt different. Their words may sound normal, their routine may look ordinary, and they may even act as though nothing has changed, yet somewhere deep inside you, a question keeps returning: why do I feel like there is something they are not telling me? And today, that question becomes the doorway to a much deeper revelation. Your soulmate may indeed be meeting someone else, but before your heart jumps to the conclusion you fear, understand this: the person they are meeting may not represent what you think it represents. There is a hidden reason behind this meeting, and the reason is connected to something your soulmate has been struggling to understand about you, about themselves, and about the connection between you. They have been carrying thoughts they have not known how to express. They have replayed certain moments between you again and again, wondering what they should have said, what they should have done differently, and whether you still feel the same powerful connection they feel when your name crosses their mind. This is why I need you to stay with this message, because the first detail may sound ordinary, but the next detail changes the entire meaning of what is happening. Your soulmate is not simply walking into another chapter. They are standing at an emotional crossroads, and someone else has unexpectedly become part of that situation, not necessarily as a replacement, but as a mirror. A mirror that is forcing them to confront feelings they have tried to keep hidden. And the strange part is that the more they attempt to understand what they are feeling, the more they realize that their thoughts keep returning to you. They may have gone somewhere, spoken with someone, shared a conversation, or sought advice from another person, but there is one thing they cannot escape: the emotional imprint you left on them. They can change their surroundings, but they cannot simply switch off what they feel. They can stay busy, but they cannot silence the memories. They can pretend to be unaffected, but certain moments still reach them when they least expect it. That is why this situation deserves your attention, not because you should panic, but because something beneath the surface is finally beginning to reveal itself. Here is where the story becomes much more unexpected. The person your soulmate is meeting may know something about their situation, but they do not necessarily know the full depth of what is happening inside your soulmate. Your soulmate may have been trying to understand their own emotions through conversations with someone they trust, hoping that another perspective would make everything simpler. Instead, those conversations may have made one truth impossible to ignore: every road they take emotionally seems to lead back to you. Think about that for a moment. Sometimes a person believes they need distance to understand their feelings, only to discover that distance makes the person they miss even more obvious. Your soulmate may have been trying to convince themselves that they could simply move forward, remain distracted, or focus on something else, yet the smallest things have been triggering memories of you. A song. A familiar place. A phrase you once said. A quiet moment late at night. Even something completely unrelated can suddenly bring your face into their mind. And there is another layer to this that you need to hear. The meeting itself may have started because your soulmate wanted answers. They may have wanted someone to tell them what they should do next. They may have wanted reassurance that they were making the right emotional decision. But instead of receiving the certainty they expected, they were confronted with questions they could not easily answer. Why do I still care so much? Why does this connection continue to affect me? Why do I compare every emotional experience with what I felt with this person? Why does the thought of truly losing them feel different from simply moving on? those questions are becoming louder. And this is where the unexpected revelation begins. Your soulmate may have discovered that the person they are meeting cannot give them what they were secretly searching for, because what they were searching for was not another person at all. They were searching for clarity about you. They were searching for an explanation for the emotional pull that has refused to disappear. They were searching for a way to understand why, after everything that has happened, your presence still carries so much weight in their heart. And when someone tries to escape a truth but keeps encountering reminders of it, eventually the truth becomes impossible to ignore. But there is something even deeper happening behind the scenes. Your soulmate may be realizing that the real problem was never the lack of feeling, it was the lack of courage to face those feelings honestly. They may have spent a long time protecting themselves, analyzing every possibility, imagining every outcome, and waiting for the perfect moment to make a decision. Yet while they were waiting, their emotions continued changing. They began to understand that pretending not to care did not make them care less. Staying silent did not make the connection disappear. And meeting someone else did not automatically erase what already existed inside them. In fact, it may have done the opposite. It may have shown them exactly what they had been trying not to see. The person sitting across from them could say the right words, offer comfort, provide attention, or simply be present, but something inside your soulmate may still feel incomplete. And that incompleteness is not necessarily about the other person. It is about an unfinished emotional conversation with you. There are words your soulmate has never said. There are questions they have never asked. There are feelings they have hidden because admitting them would mean admitting that you still matter more than they wanted to acknowledge. And now, something has shifted. They are beginning to understand that avoiding the truth has become harder than facing it. This is why their behavior may seem confusing. One moment they appear distant, the next they seem emotionally drawn toward you. One day they seem completely focused on their own life, and another day a memory of you suddenly changes their entire mood. This does not mean you should chase them or force anything. Quite the opposite. Your strength right now is in remaining grounded while the situation reveals itself naturally. Because the greatest mistake would be allowing fear to write a story before the truth has had a chance to speak. The meeting is only one piece of the puzzle. The real story is what your soulmate feels before, during, and after that meeting. And what happens after it may be far more revealing than the meeting itself. Now listen closely, because the next part of this revelation is the detail your heart may have been waiting for without realizing it. After the conversation, after the meeting, after the attempt to find clarity somewhere outside themselves, your soulmate may be left alone with one unavoidable thought: why am I still thinking about them? That question can become powerful when a person has spent so long trying to suppress it. They may look back at your connection differently now. Moments they once dismissed may suddenly feel important. Things you said casually may suddenly carry meaning. A memory they thought they had forgotten may return with surprising emotional strength. And somewhere in that quiet realization, they may understand that the person they have been trying to figure out is not someone else, it is you. Your soulmate may have entered that meeting expecting answers about the future, but instead, they may have discovered something about their own heart. They may realize that what they truly want is not temporary distraction, not surface-level comfort, and not a connection that requires them to pretend. They want emotional honesty. They want clarity. They want to know whether the bond between you can still become something real and meaningful. And that is why I want you to remember this: do not judge the entire story by one scene. Sometimes the most important chapter begins with something that looks completely different from what it becomes. The meeting may look like the beginning of distance, while in reality it becomes the moment your soulmate finally recognizes what they have been avoiding. The person they meet may unknowingly become part of a realization that leads them back to the truth of their own feelings. And the most powerful shift may not happen in front of anyone. It may happen later, when your soulmate is alone, when the noise disappears, when there is nobody left to impress, and when they finally have to answer themselves honestly. That is when your name may become impossible to ignore. That is when the memories may become louder than the excuses. And that is when the next decision begins to take shape. Because this story is not ending with the meeting. It is only beginning to reveal why that meeting happened, and what your soulmate realizes afterward could change the entire direction of this connection. There is another side to this story that you cannot see from the outside, and this is where your soulmate's behavior begins to make sense. The moment they leave that conversation, something inside them may feel strangely unsettled, not because something went wrong, but because something was revealed. They may have expected to feel lighter after talking to someone else, yet instead they find themselves thinking about you even more intensely. They may replay the conversation in their mind and notice the moments when your name almost came up, the moments when they almost came up, the moments when they almost admitted what they truly feel, and the moments when they stopped themselves. That hesitation matters. It tells you that there is an emotional truth they are still learning how to express. Your soulmate may have discovered that they cannot simply explain you away. They cannot reduce what they feel to a passing memory or pretend that your connection meant nothing. And perhaps the most surprising part is that the person they met may have noticed something too. They may have sensed that your soulmate was emotionally somewhere else, even while sitting directly in front of them. Your soulmate could have been physically present but mentally distracted, listening to words while remembering your voice, looking at a familiar place while remembering somewhere you once shared, or hearing a simple question that somehow brought back an entire chapter of your connection. This is the kind of moment that changes a person quietly. Nobody else needs to know about it. There may be no dramatic announcement, no sudden confession, and no obvious sign. But inside your soulmate, a realization may begin growing stronger: I have been trying to move forward without understanding what I actually feel. And once that realization begins, it becomes much harder to continue pretending. The meeting may have given them temporary distraction, but it also gave them something much more valuable: perspective. They are beginning to see the difference between being around someone and feeling deeply connected to someone. They are beginning to understand that attention is not the same as emotional intimacy, conversation is not the same as understanding, and being wanted is not the same as feeling truly known. And when they compare those experiences with what they felt with you, the comparison may surprise them more than anyone else. Because there are certain connections that remain emotionally present even when two people are physically apart. Your soulmate may now be realizing that yours is one of those connections. And just when they thought they had finally made sense of everything, another memory may have surfaced, one that completely changes the emotional direction of this story. It could be a moment when you looked at them differently, a conversation that ended too soon, a goodbye that carried more emotion than either of you admitted, or even a simple moment that seemed insignificant at the time. Your soulmate may suddenly realize that they have been carrying that memory much longer than they expected. They may ask themselves why that particular moment stayed when so many others disappeared. Why does your voice still sound familiar in their mind? Why does your absence feel noticeable even during ordinary days? Why does the possibility of you becoming completely distant feel so different from everything else? These questions are not random. They are signs that your soulmate is moving from avoidance toward recognition. And recognition can be uncomfortable because once someone recognizes what they truly feel, they can no longer use uncertainty as an excuse forever. This is also why you may sense a strange emotional shift even without direct contact. Sometimes when a person is internally changing their perspective, the connection feels different before anything externally changes. You may find yourself thinking about them unexpectedly, remembering something you had not thought about in a long time, or feeling that there is unfinished energy between you. Do not turn that feeling into fear. Instead, understand that your soulmate may be processing something significant internally. The person they are meeting may have unintentionally become the catalyst for that realization. Perhaps that person asked a question your soulmate could not answer. Perhaps they said something that made your soulmate compare the present with the past. Perhaps they simply listened while your soulmate revealed more than they intended to reveal. Whatever happened, one thing becomes increasingly clear: your soulmate did not walk away from that meeting with the certainty they expected. They walked away with deeper questions about you. And sometimes a question is more powerful than an answer because it forces the heart to stop hiding. But now comes the part that may completely change how you understand the title of this message. Your soulmate is secretly meeting someone else. Sounds like the story is about another person. Yet the deeper story may actually be about what your soulmate discovers about themselves when they are around that person. Imagine expecting one kind of emotional experience and receiving something entirely different. Imagine believing that you have moved beyond an old connection, only to realize that the old connection still has a place inside you. That may be exactly what your soulmate is experiencing. They may be noticing that they are not fully emotionally available because part of their heart remains connected to what happened between you. This does not mean everything is magically solved. It means they are becoming conscious of something they previously avoided. And consciousness is where real change begins. They may start questioning choices they once considered final. They may reconsider conversations they avoided. They may remember moments when you needed reassurance and they gave silence instead. They may remember opportunities they allowed to pass because they were afraid of being vulnerable. And perhaps the most emotional realization of all is this: they may finally understand that the distance between you was not created because the connection had no meaning. It may have been created because neither of you knew how to handle everything that the connection brought to the surface. Your soulmate may now see that their silence had consequences. Their hesitation had consequences. Their attempt to appear unaffected had consequences. And while they cannot rewrite those moments, they can choose what they do with the understanding they have gained now. This is where the energy of the story changes from confusion to possibility. They may not have all the answers yet, but they are beginning to ask the right questions. And when someone starts asking the right questions about love, they eventually have to face the truth behind their own choices. That truth may be that you still matter. That the connection still matters. And that pretending otherwise has become emotionally exhausting. So before you decide what this situation means, hold on to one final thought, because the next revelation goes deeper than the meeting itself. Your soulmate may eventually have to choose between what is comfortable and what is emotionally honest. The other person may represent comfort, familiarity, or simply a temporary space where your soulmate can avoid confronting the deeper issue. But you represent something different, the part of their emotional life they have never completely resolved. And that is why the real turning point may happen after everyone else leaves. When your soulmate is alone with their thoughts, the distractions disappear. There is no conversation to hide behind. No one to impress. No reason to pretend. And in that silence, they may find themselves asking the question they have avoided for far too long: if I truly wanted to forget this person, why can't I? That question can open a door that has been closed for a long time. It may lead them toward memories, regrets, realizations, and finally toward the courage to acknowledge what they feel. The meeting may have looked like a secret chapter, but it could become the chapter that reveals everything. Because sometimes the person we meet does not change our heart, their presence simply shows us what was already there. Your soulmate may now be standing at that exact point of realization. And once they understand why they kept returning to thoughts of you, why your memory remained so powerful, and why every attempt to emotionally move forward felt incomplete, they may begin preparing for a conversation they have postponed for longer than you realize. Not a conversation filled with empty words, but one where something real has to be acknowledged. And when that moment finally arrives, the biggest surprise may not be what they tell you. It may be what they finally admit to themselves first. Something has changed inside your soulmate since that meeting, and the change is subtle enough that most people around them may never notice it, but you would recognize it if you could see what happens when they are completely alone. They may appear calm on the outside, yet internally they are questioning things they once accepted without hesitation. The conversation they had with that other person may keep returning to their mind, not because of what was said about that person, but because of what the conversation revealed about you. Your soulmate may suddenly understand that they have been carrying an emotional attachment to your connection while simultaneously trying to convince themselves that they had already moved beyond it. That contradiction is becoming difficult to maintain. They may remember the smallest details about you, the way you reacted to certain things, the words you used when you were emotional, the moments when you understood them without needing an explanation. Those memories can become surprisingly powerful when someone realizes they have not found the same emotional depth elsewhere. And this is where the story takes another unexpected turn. Your soulmate may begin noticing that they were not actually searching for another person. They were searching for an answer to the question of why you still matter so much. The meeting may have started as something simple, perhaps just a conversation or an ordinary encounter, but afterward, your soulmate may feel as though they have been handed a mirror. They are seeing their own emotional confusion more clearly than before. They may realize that they have been trying to make decisions based on logic while their heart has been asking for honesty. They may have told themselves that time would make everything disappear, that distance would make everything easier, or that meeting someone new would naturally close an old chapter. But now they are beginning to understand that time does not automatically erase meaningful emotions. Distance does not automatically create closure. And another person cannot automatically replace an unresolved connection. That realization may be uncomfortable, but it is also important because it brings your soulmate closer to emotional honesty. And once a person becomes honest with themselves, they begin behaving differently, even before they say anything aloud. They may become quieter. They may reflect more. They may revisit old conversations. They may look at your past connection through completely different eyes. Something they once considered unimportant may suddenly become the most meaningful detail they remember. Then comes the moment your soulmate may least expect. They begin imagining what would happen if they never spoke to you again. Not as a dramatic thought, but as a genuine possibility. They may picture months passing, seasons changing, life moving forward, and your connection becoming nothing more than a distant memory. And instead of feeling relief, they may feel a deep sense of unfinished emotion. That thought can reveal more than any conversation ever could. Because when someone truly feels nothing, the idea of permanent distance usually feels simple. But when the thought of losing someone completely creates a different kind of emotional reaction, it forces a person to examine why. Your soulmate may begin realizing that there are things they still want to say to you. They may wish they had handled certain moments differently. They may regret allowing pride, confusion, hesitation, or fear of vulnerability to influence their decisions. And perhaps they now understand that what they called moving on was sometimes simply avoiding the emotional work required to understand what happened between you. This is why the other person may not be the central character in this story at all. The real character is the truth your soulmate is finally confronting. They may still speak to that person. They may still meet them. They may still maintain some form of connection. But internally, the meaning of those interactions may be changing. What once felt like an escape may now feel like a reminder. What once felt like a distraction may now highlight what is missing. And what once seemed like a new beginning may simply reveal that an old emotional chapter never received its proper ending. Your soulmate may not know exactly what they will do next, but they are beginning to understand what they can no longer ignore. They cannot keep living between what they feel and what they pretend to feel. Eventually, one side will have to become stronger than the other. And every sign inside them may be pointing toward honesty.